On behalf of everyone here at Broadcasting House in London, may I wish you a very happy New Year.
BBC Radio 4, the news just after midnight on January the 1st, 2019. This is Corrie Caulfield. Two of the Border Force's biggest ships are being brought back from overseas to deal with migrants crossing the English Channel. The Department of Transport says a ferry company with no boats, which was given an emergency government contract, won't receive a penny up front. 3 people have been stabbed by a man at Manchester Victoria Station. The Prime Minister has said that 2019 can be the year that differences are put aside if MPs back her Brexit deal. A NASA space probe is closing in on the most distant object ever explored in the solar system. The Home Secretary Sajid Javid has said that 2 UK Border Force ships will be redeployed from the Mediterranean to the English Channel to deal with migrants crossing from France. Mr Javid has been meeting officials from the National Crime Agency and the Border Force to discuss what he's declared a major incident. He also said the government was looking at ways to make sure migrants who came in small boats would be returned to France. 12 more people who arrived in Kent this morning are being interviewed by immigration staff. Our correspondent Simon Jones reports from Dover.
As Sajid Javid returned to work this morning after cutting short a family holiday, another inflatable boat carrying migrants arrived on a beach in Kent. 9 men, 2 women and a 10-year-old child were found at Greatstone. With the government facing strong criticism from some of its own MPs that it was not on top of the problem, officials from the Border Force and National Crime Agency were summoned to the Home Office. Mr Javid, though, was quick to dampen any expectation that there was an easy solution to stop people risking their lives crossing the busiest shipping lane in the world. But he said Britain would seek to return to France some of those attempting the journey, while patrols in the Channel would be stepped up.
I've made a decision today to redeploy 2 of the Border Force's largest vessels, which are known as cutters, from abroad back to the UK, back to southeast England, and they will be joining a cutter that's already there and 2 other coastal patrol vessels that are there.
Downing Street insisted it was Mr Javid's decision to return early from abroad and that he had the Prime Minister's support. In the past 2 months, at least 239 people have succeeded in reaching Kent in small boats. The Home Office will not say how many have claimed asylum, but in 2017 a total of 26,000 applications for asylum were made in the UK. That compares with almost 200,000 in Germany. And figures from the Greek government show 485 migrants have arrived on the Greek islands in the past week alone.
There have been accusations that the authorities in France aren't doing enough to stop people trying to cross the Channel. But the country's Interior Minister, Christophe Castaner, has insisted that action is being taken against people smuggling gangs. Our Europe correspondent Damien Grammaticus has been speaking to migrants in Calais who hope to make the journey.
The port at Calais is ringed with barbed wire and security fences, floodlights and cameras. Nearby is a sweeping sand beach, and parked up in the dunes behind it are police vans full of officers monitoring the city and coast. It's here the refugees try to sneak through, boarding small boats in the dead of night. Mostly men from Iran, Afghanistan, Eritrea and elsewhere, they live in small, squalid encampments. Having trekked all the way from their home countries, the few hundred refugees here are determined to reach the UK any way possible, so just 1 or 2 boats head out at a time. Mohammed from Iran told me he'd tried twice in the past week, setting off in a tiny boat with 10 other men who'd all paid smugglers to help them. He's trying to reach the UK because his wife and children are already there. On their first attempt, they'd run out of fuel. The second time, they'd got close to the English coast and phoned 999 seeking assistance from UK coastguards, but he said a French vessel turned up instead and they were returned to France. The reason refugees are increasingly trying the sea crossing, we were told, was that heightened security around French ports and the Channel Tunnel has made it almost impossible to stow away on lorries and trains. It's in desperation that people are turning to boats instead.
The Department for Transport has insisted that a company with no trading history, which has been given a government contract to run ferries, will get no taxpayers' money unless it meets stringent conditions. Yesterday it emerged that ministers had allocated millions of pounds to the firm called Seaborne Freight, even though it has no ships. Our business correspondent Joe Miller has the details.
In the past few weeks, government contracts worth more than £100 million were awarded to 3 shipping companies to ferry lorries across the Channel in the event of congestion at UK ports after a no-deal Brexit. But while 2 of the firms awarded are large multinationals with existing fleets, one, Seaborne Freight, is a British start-up, which the BBC revealed was given a £14 million contract despite never having sailed a single ship. Yesterday, the Department for Transport stood by the firm, saying it had carefully vetted the company's commercial, technical and financial position before signing the deal. But following criticism of the arrangement from MPs of most major parties, the DfT clarified that due to its lack of a trading record, Seaborne Freight was obliged to meet a number of stringent time-stage requirements before it was handed any taxpayers' money, and that if it did not provide an effective service from Ramsgate from the 29th of March onwards, its contract could be cancelled. This is seemingly markedly different to the £47 million contract given to a French firm, Brittany Ferries, which the BBC understands would retain some of the money even in the event that Brexit contingency plans were not in fact needed.
3 people have been stabbed by a man with a knife on the tram platform at Victoria Station in Manchester. 2 members of the public were taken to hospital for treatment. A British Transport police officer was stabbed in the shoulder. A BBC producer, Sam Clack, was on the platform when the attack took place. He says the attacker shouted Allah during the incident and suggested a motive as police arrested him.
As I walked past, I looked around and I heard the man say, it was, as long as you keep bombing these countries, this sort of stuff, and I'm using a cleaner term for broadcasting than I would have otherwise used there. If this sort of stuff happens, then this is going to keep happening. This is why he's got pepper spray coming down his face, and while the police are trying to pin him on the ground and he's trying to get up.
Theresa May has said that Britain can turn a corner if Parliament backs her Brexit deal. In her New Year's message, the Prime Minister says that 2019 could be the year in which the UK begins a new chapter. Here's our political correspondent, Jessica Parker.
It may still be holiday season, but Theresa May isn't missing any opportunities to work on selling her Brexit deal. The Prime Minister's New Year's message tries to tap into the sense of exhaustion that some feel about the ongoing Brexit debate, saying that if MPs get behind her, then Britain can turn a corner and move forward together outside the EU. She also suggests that such an outcome would allow more focus on other things like housing and education. While the Prime Minister's New Year's message may be to the country, it is ultimately Parliament she's trying to persuade ahead of the meaningful vote due in mid-January. But with the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn saying that the government's made a complete mess of Brexit and plenty of opposition on her own benches, Theresa May's stated hope that 2019 can be the year that differences are put aside may seem to some a little optimistic at this stage.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin has visited the scene of an explosion that caused a block of flats to collapse, killing at least 4 people. As many as 40 others are missing, feared trapped in the rubble after the blast in the city of Magnitogorsk, more than 1,000 miles east of Moscow. Rescue workers have been searching for survivors in temperatures of around -20 Celsius. From Moscow, Sarah Rainsford reports.
The blast ripped through the 10-storey block of flats, sending a whole section of the building crashing to the ground as fire broke out. It was early morning in Magnitogorsk and a public holiday for New Year's Eve, and most residents would have been in bed at the time of the explosion. Officials believe it was caused by a gas leak. By early evening, President Putin himself had flown to the scene as the scale of the disaster became clear. State television showed him visiting an injured boy in hospital and being briefed by rescue workers who set up an emergency headquarters in a tent at the site. Several dozen people are still unaccounted for, feared buried beneath the heap of concrete that was once their home.
The US State Department has confirmed that an American man has been arrested in Russia on suspicion of spying. The Russian authorities say Paul Whelan was detained on Friday but gave no details of the allegations against him. US officials say they expect to be given consular access to him. A NASA space probe is preparing to gather information from the most distant object ever explored in the solar system. The New Horizons craft will fly past Ultima Thule, a ball of dust the size of a mountain. The probe has been sent a final set of commands to ensure its cameras are in the right position to capture the encounter 4 billion miles away. Here's our science correspondent, Jonathan Amos.
New Horizons has already made space exploration history with the first ever visit to the dwarf planet Pluto just over 3 years ago. Since then, the probe has pushed even deeper into space and is now about to sweep past its next target. Ultima Thule is a big block of frozen material left over from the formation of the solar system. New Horizons will be grabbing gigabytes of pictures and other scientific data as it hurtles past at 14 kilometres a second. Scientists think Ultima may have preserved within its form and chemistry the conditions that existed right at the start of the solar system, some 4.6 billion years ago. If that's so, Ultima could help explain how all the planets, including Earth, came into being. Alan Stern is New Horizons' chief scientist.
It's a completely unknown type of object, something that's been kept in the deep freeze at just 40 degrees above absolute zero ever since it was formed. And we have no idea what to expect. It's just going to be a complete writing the textbook from scratch experience.
The mission scientists will have to be patient, however. Slow data rates mean it'll take almost 2 years to download all the pictures.
The UK stock market had its worst year for a decade, ending 2018 12% lower than it was at the start of the year. The 100 share index closed its final session at 6,728, down 6 points on the day. Wall Street also recorded its worst annual performance since the financial crisis in 2008, losing more than 5% over the year. But reports of positive trade discussions between the US and China helped the Dow Jones Index end the day 265 points higher at 23,327. On the currency markets, the pound is up 0.6% against the dollar at $1.27.5. Against the euro, sterling is up 0.5% at €1.11, making a euro worth 90 pence. Now for a first look at the morning papers. All at sea is the headline in the Daily Mail, which along with the Sun accuses the Home Secretary of performing a humiliating U-turn by recalling 2 ships to help tackle migrants crossing the Channel. The Daily Telegraph calls the decision by Sajid Javid a significant escalation. The Independent says some energy firms have got rid of cheap tariffs ahead of the introduction later today of a cap on bills. The consumer group Which is calling on the regulator Ofgem to investigate. In the words of the Daily Mirror, childless couples have been given hope that the postcode lottery for free IVF will end in 2019. It says MPs are set to consider a new law to make access to treatment fairer. The Times leads with the findings of a YouGov opinion poll under the headline "Optimistic Brits are defying the gloomy Brexit outlook." It says many people are in stoical spirits, with half of those questioned believing that their personal finances will remain the same or improve after the UK leaves the EU. People around Britain have been enjoying fireworks celebrations to welcome in the new year. In London, Big Ben sprang back into action to mark the moment with the traditional bongs as 100,000 people gathered on the banks of the Thames. These people travelled from around the world to Edinburgh to see in 2019 at the traditional Hogmanay party.
I looked it up on the internet and I read that it's an amazing party, so we came here.
It's great here. I come from Austria and it's really great. Yeah?
I celebrated New Year's Eve in New York and it was not as great as here. I have a really great time. It's amazing.
Yeah, Sydney's very family, lots of kids. This is not family, this is people having a good time.
The headlines again. 2 of the Border Force's biggest ships are being brought back from overseas to deal with migrants crossing the English Channel. 3 people have been stabbed on a tram platform at Manchester Victoria Station. A NASA space probe is closing in on the most distant object ever explored in the solar system. BBC News.
And the news was read by Corrie Caulfield. Corrie will be heading off to the ski slopes in the next day or so, but for those of us spending the first day of 2019 rather closer to home, let's take stock of the weather, shall we, with Alina Jenkins. Morning, Alina. Happy New Year.
Hello, Mark. Good morning and Happy New Year to you. The final stages of 2018 brought a lot of cloud across the UK, which meant the sunshine was fairly limited on New Year's Eve. Durham was the sunniest spot with 3.3 hours of sunshine. The cloud also put a cap on temperatures across much of England and Wales. Liscombe in Devon only managing a high of 7 Celsius, whilst Tane Range in Easter Ross was the warmest place in the UK. Temperatures there reaching 13 Celsius. Celsius. Meanwhile, Cluny Inn in Westeros was the wettest place on the last day of the year, with 20.4 millimetres of rain, a little over 3/4 of an inch. Through the early hours of 2019, we're going to keep a lot of cloud across southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales, with the odd spot of rain for western fringes. The clouds slowly getting eroded from the north. A peppering of showers continuing for northern and western Isles of Scotland. Strong and gusty winds here before slowly easing down through the morning. The temperatures dropping to between 4 and 7 Celsius in many places, but down to 1 to 4 Celsius across parts of Scotland and northernmost England towards dawn. So for New Year's Day, we'll see high pressure moving more to the west of the UK, a weak cold front moving southwards. By this stage, just a band of cloud with some occasional drizzle. There'll be a good deal of sunshine through the morning across much of Scotland, northern England and the North Midlands, although still a few blustery and wintry showers for the Northern Highlands and the Northern Isles. For Wales, Northern Ireland and the rest of England, a fair amount of cloud initially, but becoming increasingly sunny from the north through the day, although southwest and southern England may well hang on to more cloud into the afternoon. Strong winds and local gales initially for the Northern Isles. These will slowly ease through the afternoon. Elsewhere, a gentle to moderate northwesterly wind, highs of 5 to 8 Celsius for most, but 10 or 11 for southern and southwest England. Any drizzle in the southwest dying out during the evening. Then dry overnight with clear skies for most, especially the further west you are, turning fairly frosty for many under clear skies. And for the rest of the week, it's going to be mainly dry with some sunshine by day, but cold, frosty and locally foggy overnight. Mark, back to you.